Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Currently in the One Piece manga, there are several important events that are starting to play out on Egghead Island, setting the stage for some pretty big conflicts that are going to happen with the Straw Hats. In this last chapter of One Piece, we saw that Luffy activated Gear 5th again without having to go through the other gears, which means that he's going to be using all his power in these next several clashes. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the possible events that could happen in these next few chapters, which confrontation could happen, and which characters could end up showing up on Egghead Island. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like, or even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out and it motivates us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, in chapter 1069, we saw some new battles that are just starting to happen. CP0 started the attack on Egghead. However, Luffy and the Straw Hats are on this island and will end up preventing CP0 from hopefully completing their goal of taking Vegapunk's life. In this first meeting of CP0 with Atlas, Lucci ended up attacking them, which left Luffy enraged with the Aegis, starting a confrontation between these two characters, a conflict in which both are showing their awakened Zoan transformations. In this next chapter, it's likely we'll see a little bit more of this battle, but as it goes on, we're going to see Luffy using much more of his power to take on Lucci. Many in the community have talked about the fact that Luffy is most likely favored in this matchup because he currently has the strength of a Yonko. Although Lucci has managed to get much stronger, the possibility of him being able to win this conflict is still relatively low, at least from what we've seen so far. So if this battle were to drag on, it could become more and more disadvantageous for Lucci. But at the end of the chapter of 1069, we also saw that Lucci had defeated Sentomaru, the one responsible for being in charge of the Seraphim, having the voice of command with more authority present. With Sentomaru's defeat, CP0 will have control over the 4 Seraphim that are there at the battle, namely S-Snake, S-Shark, S-Bear, and S-Hawk. So we don't know how long these Seraphim may end up being on Lucci's side, because it's really going to depend on whether Sentomaru has died or is simply unconscious. In chapter 1069, it was also revealed the chain of command that the Seraphim obey, being the order of the world nobles at the top, Vegapunk, then Sentomaru, and finally the other Marines and agents of CP0. So this means that right now, CP0 is in charge of the Seraphim. However, the various punks have superior command just like Vegapunk himself. So that means that if any of the punks go to the battlefield and give orders to the Seraphim, CP0 will be at the disadvantage. In this next chapter, we'll also probably see Zoro and Brook jump into the fray and go to help Luffy to confront the Seraphim and CP0, because up until now, these two characters were keeping watch over the Sunny and talking and having tea. But now that CP0 has started their attack, this may have caused enough noise that they're going to go to find out what is going on. Meanwhile, the other Straw Hats are on the top of Egghead Island and watching the conflict along with Shaka in Vegapunk's room, located at the very top of Egghead. So Zoro and Brook might be the first allies to show up and face the other CP0 agents, while Luffy is taking on Rob Lucci. Let's also remember that there's a very good likelihood that Kuma is gonna make his appearance also on Egghead. But again, he could be quite far away from the confrontation is happening, and it's still gonna take him some time to travel there. Because as we've seen, Kuma is still a little unstable, and we don't know how long it's gonna take him to travel. But after he was saved by the revolutionaries, his comrades were trying to fix him and healing the wounds that he had suffered and repairing other parts of his body that had been damaged while he had been enslaved by the world nobles. But as everything started to happen on Egghead, it seems that Shaka or one of the other Vegapunks alerted Kuma to what was happening on Egghead. So Kuma used his devil fruit powers to teleport away before they could complete all the repairs and healing. So he's still considerably injured and unable to use his full strength during a battle if necessary, something that could present a very big problem for our former warlord. In addition to everything we've already mentioned, we also know that Kizaru is currently headed to Egghead Island as well. Now we don't know exactly if he's close to the island or still quite far away for these events to happen, but at some point he is going to arrive on the island. Considering that this is going to bring our first clash between our new Yonko Luffy and an admiral, it's most likely that he'll appear at the end of a chapter in very Oda fashion. But when he arrives, he's going to bring a whole new threat to confront the Straw Hats, but mainly Luffy, who presents himself as the most dangerous person on this island and the most dangerous threat for the world government. But however this plays out, this battle is going to become a lot bigger. And we don't also know if Kizaru is alone or if he's bringing along other Marines Marines to support him in this conflict against Vegapunk and the Straw Hats. However, we do know very close to Egghead there are sword members that are on an island awaiting orders from their superiors so they can start acting, and X-Drake is currently in Wano. In fact, the last time we saw Drake and Hawkins, it wasn't really quite clear whether they had died or just were so worn out that they were resting and receiving treatment for serious injuries after the battle on Onigashima. So until it's cleared up if X-Drake is still alive, we do know that his sword companions are waiting for him to return, or at least for some other command to start acting. And since he's been missing for quite a long time, there is the possibility that another sword member will start running this organization in X-Drake's place. So until that new superior is named, it's likely that Kizaru will take over command of the sword organization to help him defeat the Straw Hats, as well as help CP0 in their mission to take Vegapunk's life just as the world government has ordered. And the more enemies that come to Egghead to prevent Luffy from helping Vegapunk leave the island, this is going to make the battle on Egghead all the larger, leaving only Kuma to help Vegapunk and the Straw Hats escape from the island. So for right now, it's probably still too early to know who's going to actually be in control of this fight, because it's only Luffy who is taking on Lucci, while the CP0 agents and the Straw Hats are watching the confrontation from different places. Because after all, Jinbei and Chopper are carrying a passed out Bonnie and taking her to where Vegapunk is. And the second group of Straw Hats, consisting of Nami, Nico Robin, Sanji, Usopp, and Frankie and Sanji, are watching Luffy and Lucci class through the monitors, along with Vegapunk, Shaka, and the rest of the punks. Meanwhile, as we mentioned earlier, the last and third group of Straw Hats, of Zoro and Brook, are on the Sunny protecting it. But again, if there was a large enough ruckus on Egghead, it means that they will either go and investigate, or they could be told by somebody like Punk Lilith. So getting back into it, we don't exactly know how well this battle between the Straw Hats and CP0, along with Kizaru, and maybe even Sword, is going to go on in the next few chapters. Although right now, it seems that the stage is set and appears that the Straw Hats are going to be heavily outnumbered. But again, they have gotten much stronger since the Wano arc. Each member of the crew managed to acquire powerful new techniques during the previous arc. Now mainly Zoro and Sanji and Nico Robin and Nami got the biggest upgrades, who managed to acquire increases in their physical abilities as well as their powers. So when these crew members enter the fray, they're going to be able to help out Luffy and be able to face enemies that are emerging. So both sides are going to have some really powerful characters to bring into the battle. But again, at least for now, CP0 seems to have control of the Seraphim, which is really going to complicate this fight a lot more for the Straw Hats, because only one of the punks, or Vegapunk, would be able to exceed the control and the authority over CP0 when it comes to the Seraphim. This means that some punk is going to have to personally arrive at that location to give commands to the Seraphim, something that would be quite dangerous for them to do, because we saw how easily Lucci was able to destroy Atlas's face and quickly slash Sentomaru. So if any punk went to the battlefield to try and take over command of the Seraphim, it might just be too risky for them. And it's likely that Sentomaru, rather than being dead, is most likely unconscious. After all, we know that Oda doesn't necessarily like to see a lot of characters die in a story. But you know, it also could have changed, because now that we're in this final saga of One Piece, Oda might be changing the script on us, and we might start seeing more characters pass away. One other thing we'd like to bring up as well is the fact that Boa Hancock, Rayleigh, and other allies of the Straw Hats are currently in search of Luffy. You see, following the attacks of the Seraphim on Kuja Island, Boa Hancock now desires revenge against the Marines and Teach. But this reunion is more likely to occur in the future, because right now we've already got a huge list of characters already on Egghead Island. I mean, we already have the Straw Hats, Bonnie, Vegapunk, the rest of the punks, Sentomaru, Kuma, CP0, potentially Sword, and Kizaru. So for right now, we might have enough people on the stage that we really don't want to add too many more people, at least at this point. But as we're seeing all of these different personalities show up on Egghead, we're also getting a glimpse at these extremely important characters for the development of not only this battle, but how this may play out in the larger scheme of this final saga of One Piece. Moving away from the battle, we also hope that in this next chapter or chapters, we'll get to know a little bit more about Luffy's fruit and a possible little more information about devil fruits as a whole. Vegapunk said in the previous chapter that the fruits were a manifestation of human desires, and Luffy's fruit would exist because people still dream of freedom. And then he ended his explanation with the quote, "Well, that's what I think," which could mean that this is not entirely the full story or truth about the origin of devil fruits, just an idea that might have passed through Vegapunk's immense brain. Or he might have based this theory on acquiring some information that the Ohara archaeologists were able to discover through the poneglyphs and other ancient texts. But however we learn about it, Vegapunk does seem to know about the sun god fruit, and is even excited to learn that Luffy is the current possessor, which means that Vegapunk knows what Luffy's final goal might actually be. He may also be able to reveal why this fruit managed to remain hidden for so long without a user, and how this fruit has the ability to escape from the clutches of the world government whenever they manage to obtain it. Because after 800 years of being hidden, this fruit finally arrived in Luffy's hands. So there are several mysteries that Vegapunk may have knowledge of, although it's still way too early and it just might not be the right time to talk about the fruits, because there is, after all, a battle going on the island, and Vegapunk's life is hanging in the balance. So Vegapunk might need to wait until after Luffy and the Straw Hats have at least taken care of what's going on Egghead, or at the very least until they've reached safety before he starts revealing more secrets to us. Not to mention the fact that he does have a connection with Dragon, and also about his research on the Ancient Kingdom, and even talking about the books that are currently on Elbaf, thus guiding the Straw Hats to the fabled Island of Giants. So with all that said about our expectations for chapter 1070, we would now love to know what you think about it. First, what do you think Vegapunk meant that the devil fruits were a manifestation of human dreams? We know that in the release and leaks of chapter 1069, there was a lot of different miscommunication, especially in the Japanese translation to English about what dreams and what those words specifically meant. Because as we know, in many languages, certain words are very difficult to translate to others because it's a much larger concept. Second, how do you think Kizaru's arrival is going to change the battlefield? And do you think we might get to see the first matchup between Luffy and an admiral? Let us know what you think in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, I'd like to thank all of you so much for watching, especially those of you who've stayed with us here up to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I hope to see you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.